Let's separate them in a few categories. Numbers buff. Clunk fix. Are there any other buffs I could really see happening? Yeah. Or just new stuff. Yeah. New stuff and nothing. I'll sort these based on what I think is the most likely for them to do. So first, let's get these two out of the way. They're not gonna get fucking changes. Navia either. All right. Out of these, I think the character that's the least likely to get a buff is probably Kirara, because Kirara doesn't really have any like glaring issues in her kit, and she's the only character here that doesn't. Alright. Yeah. I don't think they need to do anything for Mona other than fixing the clunk. Iteration. It's something I talked about earlier. I don't actually think it's a good idea to change iteration. I think iteration isn't a problem right now. Like, I don't think it's bad for there to be a character that's focused around shorter uptime. The problem is that even on shorter uptime, the Omen doesn't fucking work. Like, maybe instead of just increasing the duration, you could make it so that only the active characters' hits can pop the Omen. That would effectively be a 2-second duration buff without changing any of the numbers. Yeah, kind of like that, actually. Yeah, it would be a really big buff for Mualani specifically. Actually, no, it wouldn't. Because if you do Mualani and you try to do this shit, your Chomp vapes, and then your Omen pops, and you apply 2U Hydro on the enemy, and then you're not vaping your next Chomp, buddy. I guess you'd be fine as long as you use Llama or another Dendro. Maybe then. I could see it. That could be pretty interesting. Mualani, try not to overcap on crit rate challenge. True. Okay, Klee. I'm gonna be honest. I think the most likely thing that I could see for Klee is just straight up numbers buffs. Fixing her clunk wouldn't fix Klee. And I mean, they could just give her new stuff, but it's not like her kit is like missing anything other than just numbers. Off-field pyro, but why? Why do you want Klee to do off-field pyro? Like, yeah, sure. If you let the character do more things, they'll be better, of course. But like, why does Klee need to be the character to do that? We have pyro carries that have the ability to do some off-field pyro already. I don't know. I don't really like the idea of Klee as an off-field pyro, honestly. I feel like her kit is so clearly focused on just... I don't know how to explain it. Like, right now, her kit is so focused on just her field time. She doesn't have a single thing that isn't focused on her staying on field. And like, sure, you could give her on field, but then you'd make her an entirely new unit. But like, why does that need to be Klee? Well, it's about reducing skill cooldown. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things they could do. Reducing skill cooldown to just straight up 10 seconds, so you just get 2 per rotation instead of just 2 on the first rotation. But that's more clunk fixing than actual numbers buffs. I straight up just think the ult should do more damage. Charge attack takes a lot of stamina, maybe reducing that. No, I don't think so. This is a great passive. Maybe add the burst as one of the possible triggers for it or something, but like, I think this is a good passive, right? This passive is just really interesting. Stamina management is boring when it's tied to RNG. It's not boring, you just suck. I suck too, don't get me wrong, but things that force you to be more dynamic in your gameplay, I think are good. I think it makes a lot of sense for Klee to be one of those characters that has gameplay that changes based on the situation. If anything, just instead of the charge attacks restoring energy, just make them do way more fucking damage, but only if you have this. Like, 50% isn't enough. Just make this shit way bigger. And have her combos become all about generating the spark as quickly as possible, and then using it as soon as you get it. Like, maybe add the burst as one of the things that can trigger this. Reduce the chance to like 20%. Add a more obvious visual effect when it happens, and change this 50 to like 400. And then her gameplay becomes all about using combos that rather than maximizing damage, maximize spark generation, and then reactively use your spark as soon as you get it, and it adds a lot of like skill expression to a character to the character. Right now, Klee already has a skill expression, but it's kind of boring the way it's done. The buff won't be game change. Well, 400% of the lot, man. like even if they don't add it to the burst, right? Add the burst as one of the trigger conditions for this. Reducing the odds of this and increasing the damage of it, I think, is a great way of bringing Klee back in a way that makes her feel different from other characters. But like, imagine how cool it would be for Klee's combos to be about maximizing, like, doing a combo that gets a spark as quickly as possible, right? Getting your spark as quickly as possible, but then because your charge attack does so much damage, ideally you want to react it. But your combos that generate spark faster have too much pyro app, so they prevent you from reacting. So you have to either choose between the two or incorporate really min-maxed gameplay that swaps out of Klee to go refresh your aura, like your cryo aura or whatever, but only when you get this. Like, that would be so cool. That would be so fucking cool. Right? And it doesn't really change any of her kit's mechanics. It just makes them more relevant. And it also keeps her identity as a character that has combo maximization and skill expression. I just think it'd be cool, man. Like, Klee has so many parts of her kit that are interesting, but because they don't do any fucking damage, it doesn't matter. Any buff you do to Klee as a dev would be to get like 1.0 to 3.0 players who drop the game to be able to compete in today's meta. Too much skill oppression might be problematic for those types of people. But like, Klee is already a character that fucking completely sucks ass if you're not really good at the game. She's not even that good if you are, but like, it wouldn't really change anything. If anything, it would still be a buff for them, because they already don't do the min-max combos, and if you didn't min-max combos, but this passive was changed to happen less often but do more damage when it does, and the visual effect for when it happens was more obvious, it would make it easier for a casual player to do that as well. Like, it would work in that aspect as well. Anyways, I think Klee should just get a numbers buff. Next is Albedo. Alright, chat. So many people over the years have talked about, oh, Albedo C2 should be part of his base kit. Wrong. Wrong. You're wrong. I don't think Albedo's burst should be something you want to use in every team. I like the aspect of Albedo where the main incentive to use his burst is for the EM buff, not for the damage. If they're gonna add any scaling to the burst, I'd like to see an EM scaling. But I think it might be a little too weird for them to add EM scaling to a Geo character. But maybe not, because honestly, like, if Albedo was an EM scaler on the burst, his skill would be useful as a way to generate shields. And in a team where you don't want to use the burst, you'd build him defense and just have him do the defense scaling damage instead. Are full EM crystallized shields strong? They're not that strong, but because they're elemental shields, if they're like to the corresponding element, they're really good. Like, a crystallized shield against Tulpa is pretty powerful. Alright. So...
burst forth.
Oh, am I getting fucking electro shields? There we go, we got a Hydro one. Yeah, we're gonna be getting electro shields a little, but that's an electro shield. It's getting broken. Just barely gets broken by an attack because it's an electro one. Right? No damage from... Oops. Yeah. No damage from that fucking attack.
Coming to be.
Right, we're getting hit by every single attack. From a buffed Tulpa. And we're not dying. Like, yeah, the crystallized shields aren't that big, but when they're to the corresponding element, they're more than big enough on a fully Geo character. Yeah, and it refreshes exactly. Anyways, I would like to see some more sort of EM synergy with Albedo's kit. I think he should be on the new stuff category. Venti. Okay, chat, I'm gonna be fully honest, okay? I think it's completely fine for Venti not to, like, completely come back in the meta, but there is one thing about Venti I would like to see changed. And it's this fucking stupid-ass Storm Eye passive, okay? Just make it restore 15 energy to the full team, okay? Just make it say the whole team, okay? Just make it say the whole team. Just make it say the whole fucking team. That's it. Or, instead of it being absorption, have it be any element involved in a swirl reaction that happened during the burst, right? So if you do it on an electrocharge enemy, you don't just get Hydro refund. You get Hydro and Electro. And Animo. It should be Animo too. And I consider that to just be Clunk fix. Because, like, it doesn't really change what he does. It just makes the parts of his kit actually fucking function. That's it for Venti. Yeah, I think that's the only thing he really needs. I think, like, again, just because a character gets a buff doesn't necessarily mean that they should become the new fucking best character in the game. Right? Like, Venti's purpose as a character is to be for, like, groupable content, basically. And this passive's purpose is to make him not completely worthless outside of groupable content. Because in groupable content, enemies die very quickly because they don't tend to be that tanky, so they drop a lot of energy particles. So this energy doesn't actually help you, right? This energy only really tends to be helpful in non-groupable content. That's what this part of his kit is, like, intended to do. It's intended to bridge the gap of his performance between groupable content and non-groupable content. The problem is that it kind of just sometimes doesn't fucking work. His burst auto-aim is I don't think that's true. I know people complain a lot about Venti's burst auto-aim, but it works the exact same way as every other auto-targeted ability in the game, and it's really easy to manipulate. He always aims at the closest enemy. So position yourself based on the closest enemy. His burst just needs to be lower to the ground. No, I don't think it does. I think it's fine for Venti to bring some enemies out of range of some of your carry's damage. Right, like, again, ask yourself, why do you want that to happen? It's because you want Venti to be usable everywhere. But I think it's completely fine for his identity as a unit to be, like, heavily focused on one thing. It'd be nice if we could hold Q to aim. I guess. I don't think that's necessary. But, like, sure. But you could do that for any character in the game. Give him a different debuff against non-suckable boss. But, like, that's what this part of his kit is doing. Right? Like, that's what I was saying earlier. Against groupable enemies, kill more enemies so you get more HP drops. So you get more energy. So if you build your team's ER based on your basic ER requirements, generate too much energy. So this passive won't be helpful anymore. This passive is only helpful in content that Venti isn't that great against. Would you make him refund more or keep it at 15? I don't think it needs to be more. 15 energy is good. The problem isn't the numbers on this 15, it's the reliability of it. Like, if a character has a 60 burst cost, right? And their energy recharge requirements are 140%. If you were to refund 15 energy, your ER requirements would go down to 105%, which means that this 15 energy is worth about 35 ER. 35 ER is just, like, stat distribution-wise, a little bit worse than 40 damage percent, which is what Kazuha generally gets, right? But I don't think Venti should be a character that provides a buff that's as good as Kazuha's. Because this buff isn't intended to make him the best character in, like, against bosses. It's intended to bridge the gap between his performance in boss content and non-boss content. It should be weaker, because that's not where his power lies. Just numbers-wise, I think 15 is, like, perfect. If anything, they could make it so that instead of it being 15 flat, it's an amount that scales based on his EM, and that generally ends up being somewhere between 15 and 20, right? Like Kazuha is 0.04%. They could make it 0.02% on Venti, right? But if I remember correctly, his grouping doesn't work on some enemies that other groupers do work with. Enemies that have really, really heavy weight don't get affected by, like, suction abilities, but some very heavy enemies are still staggerable, and stagger can push enemies in a direction. So, like, Geovishaps, for example, are very easy to stagger, but they're really heavy, so suction abilities don't make them move too much. Maybe they could make it so that Venti Burst has an instance of an inward stagger at the beginning. I don't think it's necessary. Anyways. I think that all Venti needs is that passive to work on it, on... Basically, have his energy refund passive work like the shred on Chilonen, where it just shreds the elements you have on your team like plus Geo, like it shreds the crystallizable elements on your team plus Geo. Venti's energy refund passive should refund all the swirlable elements on your team plus Animo. Cause like, buffs wise, it's literally the only part of his kit that does something. And it just feels like ass that sometimes it just doesn't work. And sometimes you can't make it work. Like, that's the thing, right? For the thing with Kazuha, in an Electro Charge team, you can swirl both Hydro and Electro, so you get the buff to both. But this is not about what you swirl, it's about what you absorb, and you can only absorb one element. And it's decided by priority, so in an Electro Charge team, you're just fucking cooked. You will absorb Hydro, and there's nothing you can do about it. Other than, like, intentionally not applying Hydro at the start, which is just bad. It's very bad. Anyways, finally, Wanderer. Wanderer's a bit cooked, man. The thing is, Wanderer has an interesting part of his kit that's basically the same thing as Klee, right? Like this thing. And it is kind of cool. I think that if I were asked to buff Wanderer in a way that would make him fun to play for me, I would make this, instead of 35, be like 200. And then Wanderer gameplay would be about spamming normal attacks to maximize how many times you can proc this, and then reactively dashing as soon as you proc it. Isn't it C1? C1 brings it to 60. Like, right now, this part of his kit is basically not a way to increase your damage. It's a way to make it so that dashing to dodge an incoming attack is not a DPS loss, right? So you don't really do attacks to maximize how often you proc this. You just use this effect as a way to not lose your Kugoryoku points from doing a dash during his uptime, right? I think there's basically 3 ways you could go about buffing Wanderer, right? Either one, you change the numbers on this so that you incorporate it as a part of his optimal combos, make his gameplay dynamic, where the optimal combo will depend based on RNG, right? You want to dash as soon as you get this, but when you get this depends on RNG. So you can't just be going at it with like a preset combo. You have to adapt your combo to your dice rolls, basically. That's the first thing. The second thing they could do is just make the numbers way bigger. But that'd be a little boring. The third thing they could do is they could make it so that when he has this available, his attacks do more damage, so you get rewarded for not dashing. He already feels like ass to play without a shielder, so this would just like focus a bit more onto that. But like, make it so that when he has this available, his attacks do like, they need to do a lot more for him not to suck. Just like straight up a 50% true multiplier. You just get like a second instance of his skill activated or some shit. Wouldn't that kill his C1? No. The main thing that C1 does is the attack speed. Have you seen this? I'm in, now what? Nice. But honestly, like, I also would change the C1. Right? Like, okay. Give Wanderer the following 2 changes. C0 change to this passive, that adds damage to his normal attacks when he has the passive available, right? If we look at the GC Sim Wanderer stuff and we skip past the wheelchair, that's pretty funny. That's C6 Wanderer, by the way. That's so funny. Oh god. Personal stats sim. Okay. That's wheelchair. Like, this is the first real Wanderer team. Wanderer does most of the team's damage. So, yeah, the combo they're doing is they do 3 autos. No, they do 2 autos. Then, if the dash is available, they dash. If it's not available, they charge attack. So it's alternating N2C and N2D, right? If I were to just remove the D, it goes down by like 5k, but it's not that big of a loss, right? And make it so that when the D is available and you decide not to do it, right? Because right now his attacks do 126.2, 119.4, 87.5 times 2 times 153.7. Why are you like this? Okay. Maybe just straight up make it so that each attack fucking hits that shit. So plus 140 motion value on each attack, which would be a 65% DPS increase, which would bring this team 50k. Right? It would gain what, 32k DPS. It'd still be below 100k, but it would be like between 90 and 100k. I don't think they'd buff Wanderer that much though. So maybe like 70% instead. 32% more damage. That's what, 15k? 16k? More? Would bring his team to like 80k. I think that's pretty. I could definitely see that, honestly. Right? Just make it so that when the passive is available, each attack fires off 2 wind arrows. And that also buffs the C1, because the C1 buffs the damage of each wind arrow, right? So at C1, instead of plus 70, it would be plus 120. So this plus 50%. I fucking... Right? So like an additional 17% damage increase to this stuff would make his C1 actually pretty good. But I guess it kind of makes his C2 worse, because if you just increase the damage of his attacks, it makes using his burst less valuable. Yeah. I think Wanderer wants new stuff. Because, like, just a strict numbers buff would need to be so big to actually matter. I just don't really see that happening. And it would also make his C6 a lot better, because this could proc the passive as well, right? I think that could be really cool.